Hey, new patient group and Right Chat Nation. Welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian Wright here. Welcome into episode 7 of season 6, episode 89 overall. The new patient group podcast is 2023, just keeps rolling along. Hey, we're not even that far away now from finishing season 6 and rolling into season 7. But hope everyone is doing great out there. If you're watching over on our YouTube station, hey there. Hope you all are rocking along in 2023 and doing the best you can while the economy continues to be down. Have a good one around that topic actually coming up, and the title around that's going to be what a down economy is actually saying about your practice. Look forward to doing that one. It's going to probably come this season, maybe next season. I don't think the economy is going to turn around next year either, so it'll probably be very fitting next year if I decide to do it in season 7 and not season 6. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about 3 financial presentation, or more not really financial presentation, more 3 payment plan mistakes that you're making at your practice that is really crushing your clear aligner success. If you're a practice today that is intrigued and you wanting to do more clear aligners, maybe you have a very low share to chair right now, maybe you sit in between, which I think is the worst place to be. There's reasons for that I have plenty of podcasts around that we're not going to dive into today. Or maybe you do a lot and you want to do more. Today's going to be a great podcast for you on how you can change just 3 simple mindsets, 3 different parts of the payment plans that you're offering. And if you do that, you will see an instant change in your clear aligner treatment acceptance. And looking forward to today. This one has been on the docket for a while. I am doing this one for a specific reason. When we get through the intro, has some really cool updates for you that will explain why I chose to dive into a clear aligner topic. We have a long laundry list of clear aligner topics coming up that will probably be maybe one more this season. Certainly we'll dive into it in season 7. We're going to get into a good one today that we have not talked about before that I am very passionate about, and I think you'll like it a lot. So before we get started, let's fire up the music.
The chaos of owning your own business is real, but it doesn't have to be that way. In this economy, there's a better way to grow your practice and make more money while working, spending, and stressing less. And the recipe to make it happen is right here. Welcome to Season 6 of the New Patient Group Audio Experience, a podcast dedicated to forward-thinking doctors that want less headaches and more personal and financial freedom. And now your host, he's the founder and CEO of New Patient Group, co-founder of Right Chat, and a trusted speaker for Invisalign, OrthoFi, dental monitoring, and others, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome in. Before we jump in today, let's go over some announcements, some really cool ones for you. As a matter of fact, it's actually quite a few. And something, over the course of 1 month, just a short 30-day period, it's really kind of amazing how many different things can change. And for those of you out there, especially if you're a customer of New Patient Group and or Right Chat, or you've known me personally, you're a longtime listener, we've had a very long-standing relationship with Align Technology, makers of Invisalign, and it's really about, really ever since day one, since I started New Patient Group 10 years ago. It'll be 11 years in November. Probably more 5 or 6 where it was on paper. The last couple of years, it's kind of been, we haven't done a lot together. Not because, I don't believe in them or vice versa or anything like that. It's just, things ebb and flow. People that inside companies and you have great relationships, they leave, they're replaced by other people. And it's like the relationship starts all over again. But a really cool announcement, and it allows us to take our partnership with Invisalign to an entirely different level as they put me on faculty. And, it's not one of these, ooh, look at me type things when I talk about this. I actually look at these things as, again, you've heard me say 1,000 times, the more exposure we have, the more minds we get to change. There's more people that we get to help. A couple years ago, when I was on main stage at Orthopreneurs, I still to this day have audience members send me messages on my phone saying, I am so glad that I got to see you. It's so different than anything that I've ever seen before, and my mindset to this day has completely changed, and it's transformed my business, it's transformed my practice, my life, and that inevitably is why, announcing things like this for me is I know that exposure is going to help us allow to change. It's going to help us it's going to allow us to change more mindsets out there. And being made faculty, not many non-clinical inside the practice people ever have an opportunity to get put on faculty with Align Technology. It's a really big deal. I give a lot of credit. Matt Miller, VP of Align, who's a good friend of mine, used to live relatively close to me in Houston. He's out in Raleigh now. Owe a lot of credit to him, and he's also somebody that I'm hoping to have on the podcast. You know, many of you, if you're new to this podcast, this is a contemporary radio show. I do not do very many guests on here. I'm going to start mixing in a few more. I want you to hear from the new patient group customers, the Right Chat customers, and then also people that have really advanced mindsets like we teach on here. I'm gonna try to strive to bring in also outside of your industry people that are just entrepreneurs that look at business the way we look at it. I think it'll be a great mindset shift and just a great reinforcement of the message you hear on here so many times. So I hope to have Matt Miller on as a guest here pretty soon. But I owe him a lot of credit, and I look forward to the partnership. They are going to put me on main stage. I'll be back on main stage at Orthopreneurs this year, speaking on behalf of Align Technology. It's going to be a great topic that I'll announce more about as we dive into some content, and I fly out to Raleigh here in a couple weeks to meet with them and go over some content for that. Also, we're doing, and call it a pilot if you will, but it's a good it's a nice 8-city kickoff all around the doctor subscription program. And one of the things that we teach on here, as you know, is it's just a content drip of mindset shift. And you can't, a lot of times you can't shift somebody's mindset all the way overnight, especially when this podcast is a lot of times the opposite of what you're going to hear inside, you're inside your bubble type speakers and teachers and things like that. So it's an ongoing mindset shift, and I look forward to those 8 cities. Once the cities are solidified, we'll start to announce them. I'll announce them on here. I'll do a YouTube video about it as well that you can see on our new patient group or Right Chat station as well. But that 8-city trip will be great. Main stage for Orthopreneurs is going to be fantastic. I think the next day after that main stage at Orthopreneurs, there's a private invite only. I think it's 50 to 100 doctors from that main stage audience that we're going to do a private event, I believe, that next day, which is really cool too, because, it'll allow obviously to be more of a, Orthopreneurs has gotten very large. So main stage, the audience is thousands of people. So the private event that follows that will be really cool. So if you're invited to that, docs, I really hope that you come. Make sure to come check out that main stage when I'm there. A lot of really cool things that we're going to work on with Align now that this faculty announcement's been made that I really look forward to. I know we can help, and they do too. And look forward to a wonderful journey that continues with a company that I very much believe in. A couple more things outside of those. So in mid-July, I did it's called the $4 million 4-employee practice I did for Retainers for Life. They are going to start marketing that right around mid-July, call it July 15th-ish, right in there. Make sure to look for that. That is a story. So many of you have heard the $2 million 2-employee practice that I did during COVID. That's still a very highly sought-after webinar about Bob Skopak's journey with us. And matter of fact, it got so popular now, Bob Skopak, shout out to you, man, is now delivering that as well and talking about his story as well. So it's fantastic. It's got him some good exposure, and I'm so happy for him. He's a good friend of mine, a longtime customer with NPG and Right Chat. So I'm really happy about that. But I did the $4 million 4-employee practice that really combines his story along with Dr. Robert Schaefer. So, hey, Rob. You got a good shout out in that webinar. Kind of combine the two. I believe Rob Schaefer is going to be the first 4-employee, $4 million practice. It's just a matter of when, not if. So that webinar tells a great story all about the art of outsourcing. And for those of you out there that believe in outsourcing, that realize, hey, I want to learn as much as I can about these outsource partners and use them to replace team members as my team members leave, use them to grow my business while lessening my advertising dollars. It's a fantastic webinar that I'll know you enjoy. So make sure to look for that. August 15th, I'm going to be doing a live national webinar for OrthoFi. I believe that one is going to be all around the power of persuasion. It's funny, I have said this in an episode this year, and I'll say it again now, and there is a podcast coming that is going to be the power of pre versus persuasion. The funny part about that, so at AAO this year, I did the power of persuasion, and when we put out marketing efforts around it, there were quite a few people that responded back either on social media or emailed us privately that said, hey, just want to let you know your advertisement's wrong. It says persuasion. It's supposed to say persuasion. And that made me chuckle a lot because it made me realize why what we teach is so critical, because very few people know the word persuasion. Like, it's not a mistake. That is exactly what we're going for. Is what we're going to be going for with this OrthoFi national webinar as well. And, when people are commenting, hey, you're making spelling errors, just wanted to let you know, it just shows that they have no idea that there's a whole other world to the power of persuasion. That's honestly a Robert Sutton's very popular book. But The Power of Persuasion, I have always found to be more important. It's another one of his books. It's lesser known. So make sure to check that out. As always, it'll be recorded. You can go get that from OrthoFi. We'll record that. We'll have that on our YouTube station as well. So you'll be able to get that, watch it with your team, sit down and take notes and learn from it. A couple other things, like I said, Orthopreneurs will be in September. We'll get more specific dates on a lot of these things that I'm talking about. We have Synergy that's also in September. That's going to be out in Miami. Going to be delivering all around the biggest mistakes you're making in a down economy. It inevitably, I think it may be 5 or 6 mistakes I'll talk about. It's actually upwards of 30 that people make, but obviously you can't go through all 30. We don't have an all-day workshop to go through. So the topic's going to be really hitting people home on what a lot of people do in and out of healthcare with their business in a down economy to try to give it a jolt. And it's just not the way to do it. And we're going to be talking about that one. I have not done that one live before. I've done that, at least part of it, on a podcast last season. We have some chats about it, some short chats on our YouTube station, but never done an on stage about that. So looking forward to that very much. Also, then we have October. We have NISO in Montreal. And that one's going to be great. Going to be talking about the power of persuasion there as well. So all in all, we're looking at probably, 15 events left for this year. And that's assuming nothing more are added. So needless to say, my airplane and my airport is my home, and it's going to become my home even more for the rest of the year. But honestly, just like I said, none of those are about me. Those are about our team. Those are about our company. It's inevitably why we're trusted, why we have such a good reputation. And then it comes down to the fact that when we get to speak, we get to help more people. So a lot of you that are followers out there, employees of Right Chat as well, like our contractors, employees of New Patient Group, it's good for them to all hear this. We're proud that the industry is looking at us as a leader in mindset shift. It's really cool that we come from outside all of your worlds and bring our knowledge, again, that I talk about, that 80-90% of your practice is made up of, and we're able to apply that knowledge in a very unique way to really allow your practice to stand out throughout that consumer journey. So a lot of really cool things going on today, talking about some things that I wholeheartely believe in, and this is not just going to help your clear aligner starts. It's going to help overall just with just acceptance and conversion. I have a podcast that it's not about today. I'll probably reference it a few times. It's probably going to be unavoidable as I go through these payment plan mistakes. But as I go through today on the podcast, I'll probably make some references around transactional thinking. I have a podcast coming up around the transactional versus aggregate CEO. That'll be a really good one. That's most likely going to be next season. Sometimes I never know. Sometimes I say that and it's 3 seasons from now, but it's most likely going to be in season 7. It's one that I'm very passionate about, and how the aggregate CEO always wins. They may not win tomorrow, but they always win. And it's 2 completely different ways of viewing your business and how to run it and how to handle situations that inevitably arise with customers and employees throughout the journey. There's very different things that go on. Well, transactional thinking is a killer in the clear aligner space, and inevitably, I have made comments about this periodically in different various podcasts throughout the years. Inevitably, transactional thinking. Many of you know this already, but I have my pilot's license and I fly planes, and there is this there's this thing that gets pilots killed, especially private pilots. And it's it's a transactional focus. It's tunnel vision, if you will. I have another analogy I'll make here in just a second about it. But the transactional thinking is you get so focused on the singular, you get so focused on one thing that you can't look beyond it. And what will happen a lot of times when you're flying and you've got whatever, you've got your headset on here, you've got air traffic control reading you instructions, you're clicking your button, talking back to air traffic control. Meanwhile, you may be engaged with the autopilot. You're looking at instruments. You may not be able to see out the maybe in clouds, whatever it may be. There is a constant shift where you are checking. It's why a lot of entrepreneurs are pilots. Like the vast majority of airplane sales are to entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs, we enjoy chaos. Because if you don't, you need to go work for somebody else, because it is constant chaos all the time. No matter how beautiful your business is, no matter how efficient it is, chaos will always be part of your life. It doesn't have to be as bad sometimes as it is at other points, but it'll always be a part of your life. Well, there's always chaos in the cockpit when you're flying the plane, right? You cannot relax and sit back and just enjoy the ride like you want the passengers. There is a constant shift between airspeed and altitude and attitude. There's all kinds of things that you are constantly monitoring back and forth the whole time. Even when you have a good autopilot, you still can't fully trust. You can relax a little bit, but you still can't fully take your eye inevitably off the ball. Another way to describe this, so when I was still an umpire in professional baseball, and I still umpire some college and high school stuff, I don't have a lot of time to do it as much as I would like, but I still do some high school and college stuff. And I still coach a lot of umpire camps. And I coach a big one that's at Baseball USA here in Houston every year. They've got college guys, high school guys. We do a little league camp. And I love doing it. And there's this thing called tunnel vision that affects even the Major League Baseball umpires. Now, it affects them at, a much less rate than it would somebody in Little League, as an example, somebody in high school as an example. But inevitably what tunnel vision is you have the pitch coming at you. And as an umpire, you have to have full trust, obviously, of the catcher that's sitting there in front of you. And you have to remain really still. And the only thing that's moving as the ball moves are your eyes. Well, there's this thing where what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take your eye and you're supposed to track that baseball all the way into the catcher's mitt. The higher levels you go, the more important this becomes because of how much the pitches move. The pitches can be coming in, and right before home plate, the pitch looks perfect, and it ends up in the dirt. A lot of times baseball fans get so mad at, their favorite player swinging at a pitch that bounces in the dirt. Like, what are you doing? Well, when he started his swing, it looked like a fastball down the middle. When he started his swing, that's when it ended up being a slider that dropped off the table and bounced, or a big curveball, whatever it may be. So what happens when you're going really well as an umpire and you're seeing pitches well and you're calling great games is you have this ability to track the ball from pitcher's hand into the catcher's mitt. You're very still, you're very calm, you have good timing, and usually things work out for the better. The problem, and it happens to all of us, is that you get this tunnel vision. And what the tunnel vision was that I was referencing is that you have the pitch come in, and as it gets closer to you, you're still looking out at the pitcher's mound. So the pitcher releases the ball, and obviously when they're throwing 95 plus, it doesn't take very long to get towards the front of the plate. Well, now you're still looking out where the pitch was released, and you're able to track it for a short amount of time. So the only thing that your mind has to go on is what the last thing your eyes told you and the last image that your mind has. And the next thing you know, the pitch looks good, and you're going to call it a strike. Meanwhile, the pitch bounces, or it's down by the ankles, or whatever it is. It tails off the plate, whatever it is. But you're still looking out. You did not track it in. And you have this tunnel vision focus, and you can't get beyond it. Now, what happens, just like a player in baseball that, is a hitter that goes through slumps, you're not seeing pitches well, that same thing happens to you as an umpire. I remember back in the minors, there was a place in Bristol, Virginia. I did not see the ball out of the pitcher's hands very well there. In Johnson City, Tennessee, I saw it great. Up in Asheville, in North Carolina, I saw it great. Greensville, I saw it great. But it was not, for whatever reason, I did not see the ball well in Bristol. And it's the same thing that happens to the players. Some crush the ball in some stadiums. Others, they just don't see it well. Same thing happens as an umpire. So when that does, you have to slow yourself down even more, and you have to be the opposite of this tunnel vision that I'm describing even more. This happens to all of you, whether you be flying a plane, whether it be the umpire example. This happens to business owners all the time, where you become so transactional focused, so tunnel visioned, that you can't see sometimes the most obvious things that other people who are thriving can see. And those two examples that I gave, I'm going to go much more into whenever I dive into that transactional focused podcast. Today, it's about being transactional focused, but as it regards to your payment plans. And there are inevitably 3 payment plans that I see consistently inside practices that you must absolutely change, especially because you're a commodity. This would be different if you were the only practice in town. Now, would it still help you if you were the only practice in town? Absolutely. Do I think you should still do it? Absolutely. But when people now are going into 2, 3, 4, 5 practices to seek opinions, and remember, because of the brand awareness Invisalign, as an example, as a company has created, and that is the #1 entered search term into Google. Remember, now people are going Invisalign in Google, or increasingly putting in Invisalign in YouTube and coming up and seeing what content comes up there, right? Then they're calling your practice. Then they're coming into your practice, hopefully, if you actually answered the new patient call and your receptionist was actually able to convert it. But they're also doing that with practice 2 and practice 3 and practice 4, which is why if you miss a new patient phone call, your answering service is worthless because new patients are not leaving you a voicemail. They're going right down the street and buying somewhere else, which is why Right Chat was invented. But all of this leads to you needing to change your payment plans, and that starts with how you look at your payment plans. You know, there is a podcast around just the difference between affordable and cheap, and I'm going to preference a couple things before I dive into these 3 things, because if you're an avid listener to this, you're a new patient group and or Right Chat customer, you know that we are adamantly teaching on here how to be prestige pricing. So there's a podcast, it was either last season or the season before, around the 5 psychological pricing principles. So whether you go to a mall or you walk in Walmart or you walk in a Whole Foods or you come inside a dental practice, orthodontic practice, whatever it may be, inevitably there are only 5 different pricing strategies. The very first one is what we teach, and it's prestige pricing. Now, all 5 of them work. It depends on what type of business model you want to run, but the practices that we marriage well with the most are ones that want to be the most expensive of all the opinions. Right? Or at least you're not the cheapest, right? And you have an aspiration of learning how to constantly increase your prices over the course of time to where you eventually become the most expensive. Those are the practices that we work well with the most. The other practice that we work well with the most is ones who aspire to do more clear aligners. The more clear aligners you do, the easier your life is, right? The easier it is to put hospitality and true customer service and verbiage and presentation and a full sales cycle, a full sales journey, a very choreographed sales cycle from the time they shop to the time they call, et cetera, all the way through the time you present money. That is all easier done, or more easily done, probably a better way of saying that, when you are growing your clear aligner business, because there's less appointments. Now, obviously, and you should be, adding remote monitoring to that, there's even fewer appointments. And when you do that, it allows you to reshape all the things that you would have been busy with patients back over to hospitality, customer service, sales, etc. down the line. So I wanted to preference that with those couple things prior to me diving in, because I do not want in any shape or form any of you out there to ever misconstrue us trying to teach you being cheap, right? And there is a difference between being cheap and affordable, which that podcast that I brought up a minute ago is going to talk about. So now that that's out of the way, let me get one more thing out of the way. Our practices average a higher and oftentimes significantly higher down payment, so cash flow, the amount of money that you're collecting at the time of presentation, cash flow. Our practices average much higher than the national average in orthodontics, the national average in dentistry. Most of you out there know that 95% of our customers are orthodontists, and the rest of the 5% make up a lot of other doctors. They make up financial firms and other companies as well. We want a higher down payment. However, forcing somebody to make a higher down payment is not the way you get a higher down payment. That's how you get people walking out your door, especially during a down economy. And that leads me into the very first one of the three today, is rethinking your mindset around the down payment that you require at your practice. Here's the reality of the situation. Transactional people, and I'm going to give you kind of an example here that of two people that walk into your practice. I'm going to kind of walk you down a path here just in just a second that's going to, I think, maybe paint this image better than I'm able to paint it just chatting about it like I'm about to do. Many of you out there, and this is not, if you're a 70, 80, 90% share to chair, which we want all of you to be, which our customers almost all achieve over the course of time. We even have customers, again, that are 100%, and they have decided to cut braces out of their life. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, which is not the topic today. The down payment for those that are 70, 80, 90+% share to chair, most, not all, most of those practices already have implemented the change that I'm talking about today. And the first one's the down payment. Look, let's say you're a practice and your lab bill is $1,800, right? You're a little bit more on the higher side. I am going to say something here, and this is where, a business discussion and looking at numbers and shifting a mindset probably is constituted for some of you listening to this today. Because when I say some of these things, some of you may initially immediately go, I can't make money with that. And the answer is that's not true. But you may think it. And there's different ways to make money off of what I'm about to say. But what you under no circumstances can do is put a down payment and require a down payment, it's a better way of saying that covers your lab bill. That is a surefire way, just like the other two that I'm about to talk about, a surefire way to lose to your competitors. And I say competitors in air quotes because they're really not your competitors. Today's an example of your competition. It's how you think. It's how you execute. It's how compliant you are with the companies that you use. It's how good of a leader you are. It's how good of an interviewer you are. It's how much you buy into making sure your team is trained on what they do every single day by experts in them: sales, marketing, psychology, presentation, verbiage, handling objections, handling complaints. All of those things are nothing to do with orthodontics whatsoever. They're all just applied to an environment that sells orthodontics. Okay? So you cannot, under any circumstances, it doesn't mean that you can't try to get it. Okay, that's different. You should try to get a higher down payment, and you should hopefully be able to get a down payment from somebody that covers your lab expense, your lab investment. The reality, though, is that's different than forcing it and saying, hey, Judy, sorry, if you can't put $1,800 down. And this is something many, many of you out there do. Now, unfortunately, the podcast listeners that listen to this are very, very, not unfortunately, that was not the right word, but you all are so forward-thinking that when you hear this, it's going to be a no-brainer to go do if you haven't done it already. The people, a lot of times, that actually need to hear this are ones that don't even listen to podcasts to begin with. That's the challenge of getting those people to change, is they don't want to learn to begin with. So that's the inevitable, mindset shift problem that a lot of people have, and getting people to go from A to Z with their mindset, or a lot of times just A to B or C, is because those people aren't reading books. They're not listening to podcasts. They're surrounding themselves with other clinicians that bring them down, not bring them up. So that's always the challenge in mindset shift. The other piece with the down payment, you may say to yourself, well, Brian, I don't have much cash flow. I'm a newer practice, or maybe you've been around a long time, you don't have cash flow. And you're telling me that if Joey walks in and he wants Invisalign and my lab bill is $1,800, you're telling me that I'm supposed to start it for less. And I'm telling you, absolutely, you should start it for less. And there are times you should be able to start people with no down payment whatsoever. Brian, how could you teach that? Well, this is one reason that I'm a speaker for OrthoFi, and I believe in them so heavily. This is another reason I just believe in the open choice flexibility concept to begin with. Again, podcast for another time. Is that just because you give people the ability to put down whatever they want, or just because you give the people the ability to put down a lower down payment, does not mean they're going to do it. And let me give you an example of the story that I told you that I thought was really important to dive into, because I think, and this goes back to tunnel vision, transactional focus, transactional thinking, rather than being able to look at the big picture. Joe walks into your practice yesterday, hands you $6,000 paid in full for braces. There's an example. Or Joe hands you $6,000 paid in full for Invisalign. Okay, now Mary walks into your practice today. She wants Invisalign. What a lot of you do out there, and this is the perfect example of transactional focus, is you still have your down payment for Mary required at $1,500, $1,800, $700, $500, $1,000, whatever it is, you still have a requirement. Many of you out there, again, unfortunately, have the requirement at least at $1,500 plus on a clear aligner case. Again, down payment, surefire way to make sure that you will never achieve a high share to chair with aligners. Again, this is a recipe, among many other things today, that will teach you from a financial options, the options you give. If you change this, you will see an instant overnight impact in clear aligner starts. So that person that yesterday paid in full. Today, you're still requiring Mary to put down $1,500, $1,000, $800, $1,800, whatever it may be. Here's the problem. The person yesterday that paid you in full just covered Mary's down payment as well by letting her start at a couple $100 or no money down, or again, whatever she wants. See, an aggregate CEO, and this is, as I said, today is unavoidable. I'm going to be dropping examples of what I'm going to refer to back in that aggregate versus transactional CEO. See, Joe's down payment yesterday basically paid for 2 or 3 lab fees of other starts. But if you're only looking transactionally at Mary and you're thinking, I've got to get this much from this lady to cover my lab expense, and you are unable to get beyond the transactional focus, you are unable to not have the tunnel vision I described, you are going to crash your plane, right? You're going to be so focused on one instrument that you lose focus of airspeed and you stall it on short final. And when you stall a plane on short final, you don't have enough time to speed up and point the nose down to regain speed. You drop out of the air and you kill everybody. Why? Because you were so focused on one instrument being right that you lost track of all the other moving parts up in the cockpit. You were so focused on following the pitch out of the pitcher's hands that your eyes never tracked the ball into the catcher's mitt beyond a certain distance out of the pitcher's hand. You have to be willing to be flexible on your down payments. Now, today is not the day, but the way we teach the financial, let's say you are not an OrthoFi user, you don't have a payment slider. There are very specific ways that we teach the financial presentation, from a salesmanship, a consumer psychology of buying habits, of verbiage, of presentation that gets people to put down more than they otherwise would when you do an open choice type of concept. It's, again, just like everything inside your practice and everything outside your doors. It's all presentation, verbiage, the right pictures, creating the right pictures with your words when there's not pictures already there for you. The psychology of the consumer, it's all there as you relate it to the financial presentation to get people to put more money down. But that's never going to be the habit. And I know right now listening out there, if you take all of our listeners, add you all together, that you are losing thousands of starts over the course of your existence that could have been clear aligner starts that went somewhere else because they're flexible with their down payment. Now, a lot of you out there have high down payments for obvious reasons, like I've already said, is that you want it to cover your lab expense. But a lot of you also do it because you're afraid that if you don't get your lab bill covered, that somehow the patient's going to default. And this is an industry, and you all will chuckle because you know this is an industry that does what I'm about to say, is that you all let 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 scenarios dictate the outcome instead of looking at the 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 scenarios that went perfectly fine. And I know a lot of you are chuckling out there because I talk about this on here, and it's a podcast in itself. Like, that is a mindset that you must shift as well. Because there is no data whatsoever, and I'm going to refer this to number 2 when we talk about it as well. There is no data whatsoever that indicates patients will default on their treatment in orthodontics. OrthoFi has great data that says the average amount of money put down before somebody does default is $2,400. And they do that, I think it's right around the data says the 6 to 8 month period while they're in treatment. Meaning that if they gave you $2,400 and you put them in Invisalign as an example, and let's say you're on the higher end of the spectrum from a down payment standpoint, you made your money back and a little sum to cover the other appointments they may have had. But what happens so many times out there is a couple of you, maybe you're new to the podcast, you're sitting there, oh, no, I can't trust them. Well, I've had patients default. Okay, what you just did as a leader is you took that mindset and just spread it like a weed all over your organization. That's why employees say, well, I feel, and what if? And they say it because you allow those things to be said because they probably hear you say it. Because who cares if you've had a few people default? Why would you care? Because you're going to have what I'm talking about today. You're going to have some defaults. But guess what? You're going to have way more starts as well. So when 95 out of 100 people pay you just fine, what are you worried about the 5 people for? It should have no concern whatsoever. Now, you should monitor it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't care at all, but you get my point. Why would you not design it around the 95? You have to be more flexible with your down payment, everybody. Again, there is nothing wrong with trying to get everything you can up front. Nothing wrong with it. But where it becomes wrong is when you require it. That's when it becomes wrong. You've got to be able to look at the full scope. You've got to be able to say to yourself, hey, look, Nancy just paid yesterday. She paid in full. Bam, Mary's ready to start. She's ready to go right now. You know, she just doesn't have a lot of cash. It's a down economy, or maybe the economy's great and she's just paying it on other things. But she can start right now with nothing down and $199 a month, as an example, extend it out. Maybe extend it out past her treatment time. She's ready to go right now. You should take that case. And you say to yourself, wait a minute, Brian, no down payment and extend it beyond? That's risky. Well, let's talk about number 2 now of these payment plan mistakes that you're making that is inevitably sabotaging your clear aligner starts. And it's the monthly payment plans. It's the monthly investment. Look, when I talk about cheap versus affordable, and I dive into, like I said, some of these are just going to be organically talked about today as well. But when I dive into that podcast, this is one of the examples I'm going to be using. We want you to be the most expensive out of all your opinions. Like I said earlier, prestige pricing. You do that with intent. And there's choreographing that goes in with the new patient experience and the salesmanship of you and your team to allow you to do that. Right? It's not, well, I'm just going to make it high because I believe I'm a great clinician. Like, those days are gone. Like, I hope you believe you're a great clinician, but the ways you increase your fees are the great experiences. It's the non-clinical world that goes on in your office that dictates how much money you can charge. It's just that simple. And the experience after they buy needs to be even better than before they buy. That's what high-dollar companies do, like the Ritz, the Montages of the world. When you're a returning customer, they treat you even better. But if you take a practice that is, let's say, $5,500, actually, let's just call it, maybe it'll make it simpler math if I end up trying to do math on the fly here. Let's do $5,000. Let's say it's a practice that's in your area and they charge $5,000. And you're like, no way, we're $7,000. Okay. Here's how you can be the most expensive of all the opinions and still win. One, it's all the things we talk about on here. Experience, how well your team can sell, how well they handle situations. That's inevitably the biggest thing. But right behind it, and very close, and it can't be separated because it's convenience as part of experience. Without convenience, there is no experience. Flexibility is kind of the same way here. I'm using flexibility as convenience. The reality is that if they walk into the $5,000 practice and that practice says it's $1,800 to get started with your Invisalign treatment, and your treatment is 14 months, and we can do monthly payment plans for as long as you're in treatment, the payments are going to be a month, okay, higher, and the down payment is higher than your practice at $7,000 a month if inevitably you're an open choice concept that allows them to put down inevitably whatever they want. Still going through the sales cycle to get them to put down more, but you're flexible in the times they don't in order to get them started. And extending the monthly payment plans beyond treatment time. If it's a 14-month treatment and you extend it 20 months, you have now become more affordable, not cheaper. You're $2,000 more expensive than the other practice, but you are now more affordable than that practice, even though you're $2,000 more expensive. You're more affordable on the down payment, and you're more affordable on the monthly payments. And those are the two biggest barriers. Of course, there's others throughout the sales cycle, but as far as presenting money, the down payment and the monthly payment are the two biggest barriers outside of the third one that I'm going to talk about here in just a second. This could have been called the three biggest barriers to starts. And it's these three things. It's a high down payment, too high of monthly payments because you're not willing to extend beyond treatment time. And I know some of you out there, especially if this is the first episode you've ever listened to, you're like, Brian, I can't afford this. Like, I already don't pay myself. And my response to all the things you could say is, yes, you can. This is understanding numbers differently. It's understanding this is actually a way, again, that's going to put more money in your pocket. This is a way to increase your starts. The last no that you got, the last 20 no's you got, how would you have liked 17 of those 20 to said yes to you? And like I said, this goes with any type of treatment in any type of industry. But these three things from a financial presentation, from a overall what are my options, are absolute killers if you are wanting to grow your share to chair with clear aligners. It's just that simple. There's no way around it. You cannot require the lab bill down anymore. Again, doesn't mean you shouldn't try to get it, and you shouldn't try to teach your TC the sales and presentation skills to learn how to get it or close to it. But all the other ones that want to put 500, 300, 100, 700, nothing occasionally. And again, if you're transactional focused, what you all are thinking is, oh my God, Brian's saying do it for everybody. Not saying do it for everybody. I'm just saying make it an option. And the beauty thing is when you make it an option and you make it open choice and flexibility, is the reality is that most people still don't choose it. Now, you're going to get ones that put 200 or 300 down. You'll get your ones that put 5 or 6, right? But you're also still going to get your paid in fulls that cover those. You're also going to get your paid in fulls that cover the 0 down every once in a while. And then if you're able to take a $7,000 treatment, and let's just say, I'm going to do the math here. Let's just say you're $7,000. Let me type this in. You're $7,000. And let me divide that by 20 months. All right, that's $350 a month. All right, if they put nothing down. All right, a lot of people can afford $350 a month. A lot of people can't. But the point is that's $350 a month. If you're $5,000 total and you divide it by 14 months, that is more. This is what I'm talking about. The $5,000 treatment is $357 a month, if there's no down payment, of course. But even if there's a down payment, this still averages out. Meaning if they put $1,000 down with that practice and $1,000 with you, you're always going to be cheaper because you're extending the monthly payment plans. And you say to yourself, and this is not exactly what today's about, but you say to yourself, Brian, how far do you want me to go? I can't go 20 months. And again, I'm at risk of them not paying. And my comment back to you is there is no data anywhere in orthodontics that says people default at a high rate. Does it happen? You may be listening and you're like, oh, Brian, that's a problem for me. And I would say even right now, it may be a problem for you, but still in the scheme of things, the vast majority of your patients pay. There is zero data in the orthodontic industry that says extending monthly payment plans beyond treatment time puts you at risk of them not paying. The data all shows, again, that people, when they default on their payments, it happens within treatment and it happens right around months 6 to 8 after they have put $2,400 in. Not as a down payment, right? That could have been the down payment plus 6 to 8 months worth of monthly payments as an example. That's what the data shows. So being a aggregate CEO is an example, and being able to look beyond the singular, beyond the one, and realize it's a journey, you will be able to understand that, sure, doing this, are you going to have some defaults? Absolutely. But the ones who pay just fine outnumber those defaults by so many that the defaults become somewhat of a non-issue. It's such an interesting topic because as a business owner, your job is to make your service, your product, the most affordable you possibly can to the consumer that you want to buy from you. And this whole, and it's so outdated, and I'm not going to dive into it today, but there actually is a podcast that's around not just this topic, but this whole, well, I don't want that patient. That patient's not a good patient if they can't. And this happens. I see it all the time. And everyone listening, it is ridiculous. Ridiculous. For you to allow a culture where your employees say this, or they hear you say this, well, if Joe can't put at least $1,000 down, then that's not a good patient. He must not have money, and how can I trust him to make his monthly payments? That kind of thing. It is ridiculous. It's such the wrong mindset to have. The reality of the situation is, I think right now, the studies show the average American has like $600 and some in their bank account, and that was actually a study back when the economy was good. I don't even know what the recent study is. So the recent study could be less than that. But the reality is that your practice is charging more for a down payment than what the average American even has in their bank account. And this whole crap, well, Joe pulled up in a Mercedes S-Class in a suit. You know what? He probably has less money than Susie, who pulled up in a 1980 Buick LeSabre, that's beat the hell. She has, just the normal clothes on. Guess what? She probably has, in some circumstances, more money than Joe. So you can't decide based on the car, the clothes, the hair, the look, whatever it may be. You just like you can't decide based on how you feel about if somebody can put down a large down payment or not. Guess what? A lot of people have a lot of money and they don't want to put down a large down payment because they want to invest it. The point is flexibility and options. That's the point. Again, are you going to, just because you implement this, are you going to have everybody do a no down payment? No. Are you going to have everybody extend their 17-month case to 25? No. But you win because you give them the option to if they need it or if they want it. Sometimes those two things are different. And that goes back, I had said it earlier, Brian, how far should I extend out? And that is just how much are you willing to extend out? I think that you should go 6 to 10 months. That's my personal opinion. If you have an OrthoFi and you let the slider do the work and you take off all the parameters that keep it from working how it was designed to work, some people want to go further. Now, the benefit of that is if they go a certain amount of time beyond treatment based on a soft credit check, it goes into interest based on a lot of different parameters. Like the AI and the slider is what makes OrthoFi, that portion of their service, they have so many others, but that portion so unique. I would say 6 to 10 months. Because if you extend 6 to 10 months and you're flexible and you get those ones that need to put $200 down or $300 or the occasional nothing, and you're still lower on the monthly because you're willing to be flexible and extend that out, you are now more affordable even when you're the most expensive of all their 5 opinions. Again, should you try to get the most money down today? Absolutely. Should you try to get them to pay over a course of 14 months if it's a 14-month treatment? Absolutely. It doesn't mean that you start with the lowest. You start with what works best for you, and you present it in a way that makes it sound best for them. And then if you get it, great. And if you don't, you have tons of other ways to go down your journey and still close them. You have to be more flexible with your down payment. You have to be willing to extend your monthly payments. And 3, and arguably the most important of all these, you could argue any which one of them, but that's why I think all 3 of them together, and this is a relatively short one, is that you cannot, under any circumstances, price Invisalign or whatever clear aligner you do higher than braces. Well, Brian, I have this big lab fee. I have to. No, you don't. Braces should be priced higher than your clear aligners. Worst case scenario, it should be the same. And here are the reasons why. 1, braces requires all of you out there to do way more work. There's way more appointments. There's way more headaches. There's way more emergencies. Monday morning when you walk through the door and there's 900 people sitting in your waiting room because of what happened over the weekend, those are all braces people. Monday morning, or really every other day of the week when the phone is ringing off the hook, 95+% of those of your existing patients are braces patients. There's no reason for clear aligner patients, especially if you handle remote monitoring right. All their communication should take place inside an app. Like, your goal should be to reduce or eliminate your existing patient calls. On the call thing, it is unbelievable over on the right chat side. When we look at the data and you look at, every single, it is rare where we answer as the backup for a customer, where we're not answering at least 1 to 3 or many times it's way more than that, but at least 1 to 3 missed new patient calls and remoting in and scheduling them and speaking to them just as if we're their employee. And you look at the different business models, And when we answer as the backup for a longtime new patient group customer, they're missing a minimal amount of new patient calls. When we answer for a practice that just joined us and is high share to chair with braces, and they have huge teams and mass chaos, they're missing. I mean, we're scheduling for a practice that gets 30 or 40 new patients a month. We're scheduling for those practices 8, 12, 15 new patients a month that we instantly add to them that they're missing now during regular business hours, by the way. It's not your after hours. We answer after hours and all day. But the after hour missed calls are minimal. It's when you're open. That's when you're missing them. I made a post on LinkedIn the other day. I have now called 12 small businesses this year, and I count these. And I wish I recorded all of them. It'd be great content. I've called 12 small businesses this year wanting to inquire about their services or products that did not answer the phone. You all have to wake up out there and realize that what is killing you the most, you can't see. And this is why what you can see is killing your business, because that's what you end up focusing on. It's all the things that you can't see that kills the small business. The corporations can get away with them. Now, if it didn't happen to them, they'd be even more cash flow huge. But small business owners, you can't get away with that stuff. So the point is that when you run as these payment plans are effectively implemented and you have a higher share to chair with aligners, the more that goes up, the less loss opportunities you have because your chaos goes down. And I got off a little bit on the side there, but it's so true. Like, there are so many, these are other things where it's like, you got to get the lab fee. No, because guess what? Last month, you missed 5 new patient calls. If you times that times an average case fee of $6,000, you miss $30,000 of potential revenue. That's what you should be plugging the hole with, not worried about, oh, I got to charge $1,800 with a down payment. And then you start 5 Invisalign cases this month, and 5 times, call it $2,000, not $1,800 for easier math. You have a $10,000 lab bill that you're worried about. Meanwhile, last month, you lost $60,000 or $30,000 or whatever the number is in potential revenue you could have had just by your phones not being answered. And this is where your mindset has to be in a different place. Just because you can't see it on paper doesn't mean it's not true. And that's why what you can see on paper can kill you as a small business owner. Ooh, last month I got 40 new patients. That's our record. I'm so happy, right? You're not even thinking about getting phone training or plugging the leaky hole. You're like, yeah, it's rocking. Meanwhile, you miss 7 new patients that called off an ad you're running, right? You don't even see it. You don't even see it. So the more easy, the less the chaos. Right? You have, the emergency appointment supposed to come in at 8 in the morning and shows up at 8:10. And meanwhile, your perfect scheduling template goes to hell for the rest of the day. It all goes right down the drain, and you're reactive, and you're trying to catch up the rest of the day. And then you wonder why there's so many headaches in the practice. Well, there's headaches because of the braces that you do, meaning that if you just shift your mindset to these 3 things and focused on them for a while and started growing your clear aligner business, those things, at the end of the day, you would be much more calm. Braces comes with so much more headaches. You lose somebody, you got to train them. How's the training with braces to get people up to speed compared to clear aligners? It's a nightmare. You do a lot of braces, you got to have a big team. You lose somebody, you got to hire somebody. You lose somebody, you got to hire somebody. You run a fully digital workflow practice, high share to chair with clear aligners, and 70% is really when you can start to see the real true changes. In remote monitoring too, guess what? An assistant leaves because you had to fire them, or they got pregnant and left, decided not to come back, or they took a job somewhere else. You don't have to hire anymore. Your whole world changes. But there's a pathway to get there. I'm talking today about a small, now it can have a big impact, but this is a small portion of the path. You cannot price Invisalign or whatever clear aligners you do higher than braces. It makes no sense at all. Outside of the transactional, where all you can see is if I do Invisalign, there's $1,800 yanked out of my account. When there's braces, there's nothing. or very little in comparison. And that's how most of you out there, from a transactional CEO standpoint, that's how you see it. You look at that number and you cannot think beyond it. And that's when you crash your plane because you lost focus of the speed, or you flipped it upside down when you're in clouds because you lost all of this stuff. The other piece with the total price, there are so many patients I see when people start with our private client program with new patient group. And what that is, if you don't know, is when you do everything with us. You do the business and life coaching, you do the digital marketing, you do the phone training, you do the new patient experience, you do the digital workflow and clear aligner growth and TC exam training and the doctor exam training and financial presentation and pending treatment follow-up and OBS and existing patient experience, and you're in our mastermind group. And there's a lot more, actually, to that than what I even just described, right? You have the whole journey with us because it allows us to control the story from A to Z. And A to Z is what gets people to buy. It's not A, it's not D, it's not Q, it's A to Z. So when we start that program, the first on-site, I go in, and when I'm monitoring, I see this time and time again, is that patients think that Invisalign is more expensive than braces. And that is a barrier for a lot of you out there. Before people even walk through the door, they already have that they can't afford Invisalign in their mind. Why? Well, because you're not their only opinion. They've already been somewhere else, and maybe they wanted Invisalign. And this is a lesson for Invisalign as a company. This happens to you thousands of times a year just in California or Texas. Forget the entire country, the whole world. Let's take those numbers and add them together. Happens all the time. Patient sees an Invisalign commercial, calls practice A, goes into practice A, goes through the whole exam, may even like the practice. Practice hits them with an $1,800 down payment, sticker shocks them there. They can't afford it. Then the monthly payment's too high because they won't extend it. And then on top of that, the total price for Invisalign was $1,800 more or $2,000 more, $1,000, whatever it is, than braces. The patient has in their mind, well, I just can't afford it. Invisalign is too much. And guess what? They end up doing nothing. Maybe, probably doesn't happen. Maybe they end up in braces somewhere, or they probably, life kicks them in the butt and they don't go to a second opinion. And the next thing you know, 3 years goes by and they haven't bought anywhere. Forget what that's doing to your practice. Imagine from an Invisalign company standpoint, the billions of dollars a year globally that they are missing out because of things like what I'm talking about right now. Or that person leaves that practice, goes down to another practice that does another type of clear aligner, and they are flexible, and they end up in that clear aligner. These are the lost opportunities I teach small businesses out there. You all know this, where the corporations can withstand those type of lost opportunities because of the amount of money they make. You as a small business absolutely, under no circumstances, can afford the lost opportunities that are happening to all of you out there. No matter how successful you are, no matter how depleted you are, no matter how in between you are, they are happening to all of you out there. And I bring that up being inside the TC room because it's a barrier already that patients think Invisalign is more than braces. So when you tell them it's the same or even better, you tell them that it's less, and it doesn't have to be a lot less. I'm not telling you to make it $5,000 less or $20,000. Just, it could be a couple hundred. It could be $500 less, or reverse it. Jack your braces prices up. This is what I really love, is make your braces prices so astronomically high and still make your Invisalign price high, but just make it less, right? Invisalign 7, braces is $8,500 as an example. Because if you price braces at $10,000 and Invisalign at $7,000, I can tell you this, braces is way more than $3,000 worth of more work if you're looking at it aggregately throughout your whole practice and the domino effect braces has on everything that goes on in your organization. Podcast in itself. Right? A lot of you know this already, but there's a podcast coming. I mentioned it early in the season. There's 3 things that cause your chaos. You just learned one of them. It's braces. There's 3 and only 3 things. If you're stressed at the end of the day, maybe you're stressed when you show up because of the previous day. You're tired, you're worn out, you're not growing, you're frustrated, whatever it may be. You're pissed off at the world. You want to sell your family-owned practice to a corporation to say, screw it, I want to be a clinician and that's it. I'll work for somebody else. There's 3 things and 3 things only that if you get rid of them or significantly reduce them, your life will change. It's literally that simple. And we have a podcast coming about that. And again, you just learned one. It's braces. Braces has a negative domino effect on every aspect of your business across the board. Now, are there better options now? Are there digital options? Of course, yes, there's better. But you get the point when I'm talking overall about braces. So if you're the practice that is priced Invisalign the same as your braces or a little less, you're the practice that's more flexible on your down payments. You're the practice that's more flexible and allows the patient to extend their monthly payments. Those right there are 3 payment plans you can walk away from today and start and immediately, overnight, see an instant increase in your clear aligner starts. There is a podcast coming, and it's around how the dirtiest word in healthcare will determine how high of share to chair you will ever get with clear aligners. And, it's the point of me saying that is that there's a lot of other things that will inevitably make you a successful clear aligner practice. But there are things that successful clear aligner practices do that are truly digital workflow, very advanced, smaller teams, very high end from how the practice looks, low stress, low chaos, more time to focus on their business, rather than be stuck inside the practice every single day. That in itself right there will help you grow. And that is very much about the transactional versus aggregate podcast that I'll get to. Very much. Because the more braces you do, the less time you have to implement, train, role play, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Shoot great social media content. So you have a wonderful digital presence that destroys people as people search. Right? The more braces you do, the less time you have for all that. So again, it goes back to, it's way beyond your single, I've got not a lot cost here with braces on the front end, and I've got this here for Invisalign or whatever clear aligner you do. There is so much more to your transactional thinking, right? We have got to be flexible on the down payment. We have to be able to extend monthly payments beyond the treatment time. And 3, we've got to price your clear aligner, Invisalign, whatever you do, the same as your braces or less, right? And again, lastly on that topic, I am not talking, let's say right now, your Invisalign price is the same as braces and you say, okay, I want to make it less. I do not want you to go down from the $6,000. I want you to go up with braces. So that way Invisalign stays at 6 and braces is now 6,500 or 7. You see how I did that? I didn't go Invisalign 5,500, braces 6. It goes the opposite. Jack your braces prices up. And there's no reason to be scared to do it. And by the way, when you do that, and you still apply all these, flexible with your down payment, flexible with your monthly payments, that's a way to where if they do select braces still, it makes it much more worth doing because, again, it's so much more work. And it domino effects into so many other areas of the practice. I hope you enjoyed today, everybody. Remember, prestige pricing. We want you to be the most. And today was a little bit of our recipe on how you can be the most expensive while still being the most affordable. Again, a podcast in itself, like I said. 3 things. Flexibility on your down payment. You should still try to get the most you can. But there are going to be times you've got to be flexible, like I said. Even sometimes where there's 0 down. Extend your monthly payment. Start with 6 to 10 months. But again, don't go low on your down payment and don't immediately extend. This is why TC training is important because you don't want them to immediately go to the easiest they think it is to sell. Well, my treatment acceptance is 80%. And another one that's 70 or 60. Well, guess what? The 70 and 60 is better because they got better payments from the patients, right? Just because you're 80, you may be closing them on the wrong stuff. That's why there's a whole nother world to this, but this is still something you can start right away. Flexible down payments, extend your monthly payments, price Invisalign or whatever clear aligner you're doing the same as your braces or less. And if you go less, that means you've got to jack your braces prices up. You do not come down on your clear aligner price. All right? Hope you enjoyed today. Those are 3 powerful payment plan methods that you must implement to thrive in today's competitive, complex marketplace with this consumer that is shopping more than ever before, and it will only continue. I hope you implement this. If you want to talk business strategy with me, reach out on the New Patient Group or Right Chat site. Ask to speak with me. I'm happy to talk about this in more depth, help you just like we've helped so many practices out there go from low share to chair to very high share to chair. Maybe you're stuck in the middle and you don't know where to go. And that's earlier I said the middle is the hardest place to be because the middle, your align bill is still pretty high, right? But you still have to have a huge team to support the analog braces that you're doing as well. It's a bad place to be. Maybe you're stuck there. Reach out. Let's talk about how we can get you to 70, 80, 90, even eventually 100%. All right. Hope you enjoyed today. Have a great week, everybody. Take great care of your patients. Special thank you to the Right Chat and New Patient Group family members for your loyalty. Last shout out, the Mastermind Group. We have picked our 2024 location. Make sure to check out the Slack channel if you haven't. We're going to be in the great Kirk Specht, a great orthodontist out in California. We're going to be in his backyard. So excited because I know our 2023 in-person event was fantastic. So we'll look forward to seeing you in 2024. Until next time, everybody, thanks for the loyal following. We'll talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Brian Wright. Thank you so much for listening, and please visit newpatientgroup.com/free courses to get our latest on-demand video trainings for free. These are shot in 4K, exceptional quality, and we really want you to test out our content. So just go to newpatientgroup.com/free courses, sign up, and you'll learn some really amazing things. We would also like to answer your new patient phone calls with my company, Right Chat. We can be the primary and answer all of them, or we can be your saving grace, where the ones you miss, we will answer them as we're sitting at your front desk, your own employee, remotely log into your software and schedule that new patient, and they never even know a third party answered. It's a revolutionizing the answering service industry and honestly made call services and answering services completely obsolete because nobody will leave a message in this new economy. So if you use a call center or an answering service, switch to Right Chat as a game changer. We'll do it for 2 months free. We have our own in-house IT team that will hook everything up for you. Your software, your phones, your phone number, you don't have to change anything. The onboarding is simple. We make sure that process is streamlined. And when you hear my agents answer that new patient call, you're never going to want your own team to do it. And it'll be a great training when you listen to us. We'll be a great training to get your own people trained as well. Okay, so look forward to helping you out. I ask that you please write a 5-star review about the New Patient Group podcast on Apple or wherever you're listening to the podcast. And also write a 5-star review about New Patient Group and Right Chat online. That would really help us out. If you're watching on YouTube, give a thumbs up to the video, subscribe to our channel, put some comments in there how much you like it. And I would personally like to offer you your own free business and practice consultation with me so we can chat about your business and I can personally prescribe something that is really going to help you thrive in this new economy of competition, commoditization, and consumerism. Once again, thanks for your support. We'll see everybody soon. Bye-bye.